Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. My father is the kind of man that has never been anyone's favorite uncle, neighbor, colleague, and maybe even parent. I'm not in any way suggesting that he's a bad person, but he has a way of handling and expressing what's within him that comes off as aggressive and harsh, and that people usually struggle to get used to and learn how to appreciate. I could even guess that deep down he hardly ever feels strong positive emotions for anyone other than himself, but that's genuinely just me being brutally honest and objective, not to bash him out or anything. That introduction should somehow explain some points throughout this incident that would otherwise seem rather strange. My upbringing as an only child, and an absent mother and a father that's always been suspected to be in the mafia, hasn't made it easy for me to chase after finding a good, stable career and lifestyle for myself. Knowing and understanding that could probably ease the process of telling this story, but we'd stay here forever if I had to explain it all. 3 weeks ago, I got an email from my dad inviting me to Thanksgiving at his place. I found it extremely strange that my parents would inform me of my invite via email, so I called to make sure everything was all right. My mother then informed me that it was just a matter of automation. My dad put his programming skills to use and sent out an invitation email to every single one of the family members, and my name happened to slip amidst them. I inquired as to why they were suddenly, and for the first time since they got married, might I add, were they inviting the entire family for a dinner holiday reunion. For further context, we've always been very distant from everyone in the family as neither one of my parents trusted the other's family, thus leaving me barely capable of recognizing any of them. It came to my shock and surprise when she told me that there was no reasoning behind it that was too deep. Just that they were growing tired of constantly and strictly being around each other and they wanted to bring some sound and color to the house. What better chance and atmosphere to manifest that other than vacations, right? I couldn't disagree with her, obviously, but I'd also be lying if I said I was sold on it. I tried to question their logic behind the sudden urge for familial warmth, but decided to drop it, knowing how stubborn and hard-headed both my mom and dad were. I was skeptical, but I could still find it within me to regard them with awe and feel sorry for the aging lonely couple. Just kidding. These people were suspected to be in the mafia. I didn't dare feel sorry for a minute because I knew wholeheartedly that they were up to something. The following weeks passed by rather quickly as I tended to keep my days busy with work, studies, and productive activities. Before I even knew it, I was getting ready for the 4-hour drive to my parents' house, and the anxiety that I was milking off the idea of meeting most of my family members for the first time at the age of 26 years old. I got to the house I was all too familiar with around sunset and actually dwindled in the welcoming, nostalgic smell of my mother's cooking and my dad's questionable sense. I noticed how unusually loud and noisy the house was the second I stepped foot on the porch and pushed the door, which was left open to my surprise. I was immediately greeted by my mother's embrace while my eyes darted around the enormous number of people that stood scattered around the house. Some kids ran around one another, completely oblivious to my fresh entrance to the scene, while the adults paused in their activities and looked at me with warm smiles and anticipating gazes. After I was done being walked around and introduced to everybody, starting with their names and some extra bits of information that was impossible to maintain considering how many there actually were, I walked back to the kitchen where my dad stood, making sure everything was cooked. He was checking on the last few touches, I assumed, as everything was laid out and well propped, ready to be escorted into the dining room. I tried to make small talk with him, but he seemed even more blocked off than usual. He was in his little zone, making sure every single plate was perfectly plated. My suspicions were growing really strong as I noticed how motherly my mom was and how anxious my dad looked. If I may add, that's the exact opposite and definition of what my parents aren't. After we had all been seated at the table and everything was placed in its place, it resembled something straight out of a movie. It was far too perfect to a point that I was genuinely becoming uneasy and unsettled. Nobody else seemed to notice, seeing that nobody else had even seen the interior of this home before that evening, but sparks of a dark green shade of manipulation were radiating off my parents, and I did not like it one bit. The evening quickly changed from something I was mildly nervous about for normal reasons to me, questioning my parents' safety and their intentions, and then being concerned for the safety of everyone around me. It all happened so quickly that I couldn't even explain it. One moment I was sitting in my seat munching at my food silently as I pondered the true intentions by which my parents held this dinner for everyone, and the next my father was standing at the end of the table, clanking his glass of wine with a fork to get everyone's attention. Truly, with all the pride I hold for knowing my parents and my ability to predict their actions, I don't think I could have ever predicted nor seen this one come in. Apparently, according to my father's statements, he was on trial for smuggling large amounts of alcohol into the country via the border and was involved in one too many cases of embezzlement, blackmail, and money laundering. Yes, he put it out as simply as one could just bat out of the charges he's being prosecuted with, like they were ingredients of the familial heirloom of bread making. He informed everyone that he was sorry for inviting them and bringing them into his home with intentions that didn't align with what he had planned, but he also had something to ask of everyone. My dad's trial was being held in both countries, the one from which he smuggled the alcohol allegedly, and the one we're living in. I'll refrain from stating what the countries are to avoid getting myself unwanted attention. For the reason that trials were being held against him and he barely had any proof to back him up, which according to him is because he didn't do anything and he didn't think to have proof against something he didn't do. I could already see everyone's expressions changed into judgmental and disgusted, or rather threatened and unsettled, and I honestly don't blame them. To state that it truly didn't come to any of my surprise when the family table was empty when my father asked everyone to testify for him regarding the dates on which he would be questioned would be an understatement. He was genuinely asking everyone to lie in the court of law and say that he was with their company under some different excuse. Familiar gatherings, reunions, rituals, and so on. He was straight up asking a bunch of, basically strangers, to lie in the court of law to save him from serious allegations as a thank you, I suppose, for having them invited to dinner once in his 35 years of marriage. I, on the other hand, didn't follow as 90% of the people in the house fled it one after the other. I didn't speak or look at anyone or anything. I was bamboozled with the events that had just taken place. To put my life and things I've struggled with my whole life, building on hold so I could go testify in another country didn't seem very appealing to begin with. Sprinkle my dad's horrible nature of actions and the manipulative tactics that were put in place when constructing the events of that evening into consideration really does leave that mind puzzled and unsure. I'm not sure what to do, and I'm not sure if any of you could suggest anything that would help me, but I've been through a lot to finally build myself independently from all that toxicity and damage. I'm not sure if by agreeing to help out I'd be giving all that away or getting myself involved into something that would never end. Please help me with any advice that you can think of. That is an insane story. Your parents really are something, and I don't think I can tell whether they are good people that deserve for you to put everything into play like that for them or not. I suppose one can never return from the favor of being brought into the world, but I'm sure you can manage distancing yourself from a strict routine to be able to help out even in slight ways for a short while. It won't kill your career, but it could save your relationship with your parents. I guess if the nature of your days is so rough and busy because you're trying to build yourself on your own, you could dilute it down and make time to help your family. Your relationship with them seems friendly, even if not all too perfect or good. I guess it's about how much you really want to help out and everything else will fall into place. In other words, set your priorities and when you act on them, don't look back or consider regret. I don't think you should help out. The way your parents come off really seems off to me. On the off chance that those allegations are true, you'd be helping a criminal before you'd be saving your dad. Consider what kind of a person he is and remember that you've worked really hard to get where you are. Cases like these can take years and years of back and forth. If you're willing to give up years of your life to a person that may be a criminal, then go for it. If not, I'm sure if your dad is a good person, he'll understand. Next story. I've got 2 siblings, 15 female, 17 male, and while I live in mom and stepdad's household, currently at university, I was tasked with most chores, washing dishes, doing laundry, cleaning, running errands, you name it, while my siblings had none. Their reasoning, you're older. I protested this many times, telling them my siblings were old enough to also share the chores, but stepdad always shouted me down and called me ungrateful after he put a roof over my head and fed me. That's been a line he's thrown at me endlessly. My siblings have been given anything they want, allowances, gifts, electronics, but if I asked for something, I was told I didn't need it. That's why I started babysitting at 12 so I could buy my own goods. I worked since. Then, they stopped buying me basic goods like sanitary products as soon as I started working. I'm at university on a full scholarship because I knew early on I'd be on my own on this front. I worked my ace off to get into my top choice. I love it there. I feel free and in control of my life. The issue came during dinner. Mom, stepdad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were there. I was talking to an aunt who congratulated me on getting into my university, and my stepdad said loudly, "Trash giving thinks her fancy college makes her better than everyone else as usual." I can't explain what was different this time, but I snapped. I told him he was pathetic for picking on me all my life when all I'd done was try to be a good kid. And I told my mom she was spineless for letting him treat me this way, and I left, which felt like the right thing to do at the time. I slept at a friend's and got a train back to university the next day. My mom has called me distraught, like full on sobbing, saying I was being overdramatic and that I humiliated them. She says that I'm ungrateful because look at how well you're doing. That's because of us. And I just don't know. I feel bad that she's this hurt. People have it worse. I am doing well. I have a family to come home to. I just don't know. Am I being dramatic? Am I the a-hole? Update. I can't tell you how validating some of these comments have been. I never talk about my family in real life because deep down, I think I feel ashamed of how my family treats me. So this has been helpful, really. I don't have it in me yet to tell them what I need to tell them outright, but I do have it in me to go no contact. They don't fund any part of my life, so the only thing they can hold over me is themselves. I'm writing an email now to let them know not to contact me and that I won't be contacting them until I'm ready to communicate. Brother texted me, "Mom won't stop crying, hope you're happy." Sister texted, "This sucks." So there's that. I love my younger siblings, but I'm going no contact with them as well before I figure out what I want. Not the a-hole. And in case you took your mom's words to heart, I need you to know that you are where you are in spite of them, not because of them. You raised yourself, you worked your butt off to get away from them. You are the only one who deserves credit for how wonderfully you're doing. Exactly. OP, your mother is spineless. She has allowed for you to be treated as less than for being a stepchild. She allowed you to go without for the sake of peace. You're not overdramatic and deserve better. Keep in contact with those who truly value you and move on. If you want to tell your mom your feelings before doing so, go ahead. But she will not be open to what she has done in order to protect herself from facing her neglect. That is not on you. Your siblings suck too for never speaking up for you. Go make your own family, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, and you were spot on with your comments. My guess is your siblings are stepdad's kids and thus the difference in treatment from stepdad. He views putting a roof as a favor to you instead of his job when he married your mom. You don't owe him anything. Your best revenge is to carry on your path and be successful in your own life. As to your mom, don't back down. They owe you an apology for how you were treated. She was complicit in their parentification of you. Not the a-hole at all. He's bullied you and she's allowed it. You didn't say anything that wasn't true. I'm not saying anything that others haven't already said, but yes, you are where you are in spite of them, not because of them. If anybody brings that line up again, you might ask why if that approach was so successful in making you who you are. They didn't choose to take the same approach with their other children. So let me get this straight. Mom, according to you, I'm doing well and I'm in a good place because of the way you treated me. Why didn't you treat bro and sis the same? So that they could be successful and in a good place too. Or if the way you treated them was the right way to raise kids, why didn't you raise me that way? Your mom's husband is an ace, and your mom's an ace for allowing that dynamic to happen. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to get better. The best thing you can do is keep your distance. Repeat after me though. You are not responsible for your mother's feeling. If she's hurt, it comes back to her and her choices. Next story. When I was 16, a girl I had a one-night stand with at a party told me she was 6 months pregnant with our child. She'd only just found out. It was the last thing I wanted. I dreamed of going to medical school since I was a kid, but was as involved in my daughter's life as I could have been due to our custody agreement, which favored her mom despite clear issues. Our daughter is now 16. Her mom and I were extremely different. I was fortunate to grow up quite wealthy with great parents, whereas she grew up in a rough area with limited resources and was raised by a single mom. She has some dependency issues with drugs and alcohol. My daughter's childhood wasn't exactly great. Her mom was on and off drugs for years, in and out of abusive relationship for years, and paid little attention to our daughter, who started having pretty significant behavioral issues when she hit high school. I did as much as I could, but we always kept at a distance. About 2 years ago, my daughter's maternal grandmother, who still lived with my daughter and her mom, was diagnosed with MS, and she decided that she couldn't deal with my daughter anymore and pretty much dropped her off at my doorstep with no warning. She's an angry and hurt kid, and I can tell as much as she wants to open herself up, she can't. I put her in private school, gave her her own room, put her in dance classes she was desperate to attend, and for a while she seemed to be settling down. She then met a boy, and her behavior just spiraled down from there. She dropped out of dance, began failing her classes, drinking and sneaking out. About a month ago, she came home from a party, drunk and high, and scared my 4-year-old son badly. I won't go into specifics. After a few of these incidents, I told my daughter that as much as I love her, she has to leave. She did, but my wife thinks I was an a-hole for my decision, and pretty much everyone in our lives has told me that I'm an a-hole for giving up on her. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You were never a father, and when you had the chance to be one, you just chose the easy way instead of parenting, trying to figure out and helping your kid. Your daughter is a teenager who has never had any stability in her life. Are you that surprised that private schools and dance classes weren't enough for her not to do some stupid things? Get over yourself. Get your kid into therapy, go to family counseling, and be a supportive and present father for that girl who was already rejected by her mother. So this girl's mother let you down. You let her down when you didn't step in, even knowing her mom was on drugs. And now you're further letting her down by kicking her out instead of getting her help. Yeah, I think that makes you an a-hole. You're the a-hole. You punish first. You give 16-year-olds significant amounts of warning shots. You remove TV, tablet, you remove smartphone, you stop her dance classes, you make her pick up rubbish in a park in ugly clothing to make her think of community service. You ground her. You don't kick a minor out for coming home drunk. You have long, important conversations about the impact of her behavior. You put her in therapy. Not only are you the a-hole, you're a horrible human being. You knew while she was growing up that she was not in a good situation and you didn't step in. Now, when you've been forced to step in, you've abandoned her. How you sleep at night is beyond me. Have you been a teenager? Have you ever gotten drunk or just wanted to rebel? Made mistakes like having a one-night stand without protection? I think you can say yes to one of those at least. I think that covers a significant portion of teenagers. Yes, she met a boy and went a bit wild. She's 16. You're the a-hole. What the hell is she going to do? Your role as a parent and legal guardian is to protect her and prepare her for the world, not throw her flat out on her face. She will be put in a very difficult situation where women are often taken advantage of and horrible things happen to them and scars them for life. Get her back home ASAP and be kind. She just wants love and attention. She's getting it from wrong places. Therapy is also a thing as well as mental health. Even for you, if you struggle with this whole concept, it's okay to not understand. Just strive to be better. Are you going to do this to your son if he does the same in a decade?